Hello, today we're talking about one phrase that shuts down difficult conversations. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Buffy. I am a women's lifestyle creator on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. And I also have two podcasts. One is Recovering Perfectionist Mama, Grace in Progress, which is housed here on YouTube, covering a psychology channel. And the second one is Grace and Gavel, Where Truth Meets Compassion, which is a true crime channel. I'm an almost 15-year criminal defense attorney, or excuse me, 18-year criminal defense attorney. And I go into legal analysis. If you're interested, they're housed on YouTube. So if you want to check that out, feel free, same username. There is one phrase people use that will shut down almost any difficult conversation. And most people don't even realize that they're doing it. Let's talk about the phrases that will shut down any conversation with no matter what the topic is. You're overreacting. If I were having a conversation with you, just you and I right now, and I said to you, oh my gosh, like you're overreacting, how do you think that you're going to respond to me? You're likely going to shut down, aren't you? Or you're going to have maybe some choice words for me. You are going to potentially say, you know what, this conversation is done. I don't want to have this conversation, because essentially I am putting you in a box, right? Walk away. Absolutely. Because when you're having a conversation with someone, do you expect to be attacked from the instant that the conversation starts? That's not a conversation. That's an ambush, right? That is what that is. That means that that person was like, you know what? I'm going to shut this person down, and I'm going to do it immediately. Or I could say to you, you're telling me, hey, look, I have this concern about you. And there was something that happened recently, and you did this. And the person says, that's not what happened. You don't know what happened. I mean, they've already told you you're overreacting. And then now they're like, that's not what happened. So essentially, how many of you would feel like they're lying? They're saying that you're a liar, right? Rather than, I'm not sure that happened, but can you tell me your perspective? But ultimately, this is all aimed at getting you to stop the conversation, forget everything, and just move forward like nothing happened. That's what it's about. It's about controlling the narrative, because in some ways, people who feel threatened, people who feel like on edge or feel like they have to be defensive, clearly have something to hide. So this conversation was aimed at shutting down the other side, no matter the costs. I guess it kind of depends on who the person is on the other side. Are they a person that you're close to? Are they a person who's always been combative with you? I mean, that kind of makes that kind of makes a difference. You know, if it's actually a friend, I mean, that's kind of another thing you need to maybe deal with. Or you're too sensitive. I love how people who get super aggressive, it's almost like they have the playbook, right? Well, first I'm going to tell them they're overreacting, and then I'm going to tell them it's not what happened, and then I'm going to tell them they're too sensitive. People who are sensitive know they're sensitive, right? They know that. And that's not necessarily a flaw. Yeah, it can mean that sometimes you cry when you don't want to, or you get mad when you shouldn't, and things like that. Sure. I'm a sensitive person. I know it. I acknowledge it. But that's not something that you're using against someone. And I think people that want to kind of come to the table with like defensiveness and shut things down, they're not into communication. They're into ending or shutting down communication, to having the upper hand. And these are not just words, right? These are actually, in some cases, I would consider them to be insults, right? Telling someone they're overreacting, telling them that that's not what happened, telling them that they're too sensitive. They end conversations. I mean, how do you come back from that? That person's not going to apologize. I mean, literally, they blasted somebody in like 5 minutes. So it's like, what else do you want to talk about? What is there to talk about? So what it actually does And this is actually very kind of a sneaky strategy, in my personal opinion, because I like to be genuine and direct. And if you're having a conversation with someone, disrespecting them right out of the gate is like the worst thing you can do. And clearly, you weren't interested in a conversation in the first place, or shifts the focus from the issue to you. Now you are going to get defensive because you've been called names, because this person is clearly not into actually having a meeting of the minds or a mutual conversation. They want to lambaste you. And it invalidates your perception. I mean, literally, when them saying you're overreacting, honestly, what they're saying is, you're crazy. They want to say that. And that might be the next thing they would say. I don't know if this is necessarily that, because there's really not a context. It's kind of a general thing. But I do think that if both parties are respectful, I think that that's the way to go. I mean, I guess if, like, let's say in that scenario that, the other person actually is the wrong party. Let's say this person has been wronged. I mean, I think the best case scenario to be able to do that is try to remain as calm as possible. Because I think if you're not as calm as you need to be, that can almost give them even more fuel and more fury. I mean, it can be easier said than done. I mean, I'm not going to say that. I mean, I get emotional sometimes as well too, but I try to be respectful. I really don't like conflict, to be honest with you. I know that's funny, given the fact that I am a criminal defense attorney, but I don't know. I think that it kind of depends on the scenario and like how bad the thing was that they did to you too, I guess. I mean, because ultimately I think people have the right to have a conversation and say, look, this is what you did to me. And I'm very upset by it and I'm not happy. But if there's a way that we can potentially work this out, if there's a way that we can like talk and kind of figure out where things went wrong and maybe how to fix those things, that would be great. Like no name calling, no, being mean to other people and things like that. So, I mean, I think that's a good question, Bobbers. I really think that's a good question. And, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you're thinking about, oh, this person was wronged, then then that person might say some things that they wouldn't normally say in a normal conversation. And it may be a scenario, let's use your scenario where that, you're the wronged person and you literally are thinking, look, this person is like, they haven't accepted accountability for anything. They haven't really been open to answering what the questions that I have. You know what I mean? And I think that ultimately it depends on like I said, like how willing they are to talk. And if they're already shutting you down, I just, that can be difficult. And, obviously calling somebody names and telling them they're essentially crazy is not going to do anything, but I do agree with you though. Like if somebody starts from the gate, just, throwing things at you, you know what, I'm not doing this. We're done. Sorry, we're done. I mean, I don't need to be yelled at. I'm trying to, figure out what's going on and try to resolve this situation rather than just keep it going, You're welcome. Thank you for the question. That was actually a good question to kind of talk about how, there's two sides to every story, right? And so ultimately, we don't know what happened in our hypothetical situation, but that is a very good thought too. And it also too forces you, like in that scenario where you're being called crazy and all this, essentially without them saying those words, it forces you into defense mode. So you were literally going to be swinging. I mean, not swinging literally, but literally swinging like, okay, what are they going to throw at me now? Like, what are they going to say now? Because they've already dressed you down once. I mean, what's going to keep them from doing it again? And ultimately, it's like objecting to the witness instead of addressing the evidence. And defense attorneys do that quite a bit, especially when they feel like the witness is not credible for whatever reason. Maybe they have, like a theft charge or something like that, which would be a crimen falsi crime, which is admissible to prove truth. that the person was dishonest. And so that could potentially be used against them. So you've been dishonest before. So what makes me think that you might not be dishonest now? I mean, you actually have a theft charge, so you think about things like that. And oftentimes too, defense attorneys will do things. I'm a defense attorney, but I'm saying like in cross-examination, if they think that, they have evidence that someone is not actually hasn't actually been honest, and that their credibility could actually be an issue. I mean, that could potentially help the defense attorney, especially if they're accusing their client of something. Thank you for the sub, Bobbers. I appreciate it, and it was nice to meet you. And thanks for your question. Love the interaction. And so also, oftentimes the other thing people do, why they use it, is it helps them avoid accountability. And if you're a person who doesn't like to avoid accountability, or you want to avoid accountability, these are the tactics. These are dirty tactics that people use to try to get people off their game or get people frustrated and confused where they just walk away because they're so annoyed by the antics, so annoyed by the games, because these are literally games, kind of gaslighting, telling someone that you want to have a conversation with them and then not playing by your own rules, essentially attacking them. And it also helps them maintain control and feel like they're in charge. They decide what happens. They decide where the conversation goes. And ultimately, some people have issues with emotional truth, right? So you might have issues with being told, hey, look, this is what happened. Like, I am emotional. Yes. I'm upset. Yes. I don't know. Today we're talking about one phrase that shuts down every difficult conversation. Actually, there's multiple. And so being told that you're overreacting, or that's not what happened, or you're too sensitive, those aren't words, they're conversation enders. And so people use that to avoid accountability, maintain control, and the discomfort with emotional truth because they don't like that you're upset about something. And that can just make it really hard for them to actually want to play by the rules and to have an honest and open conversation. So the impact on what they did in that scenario where they're calling you names and essentially asserting that you're crazy is you start questioning yourself. Like, am I wrong? Like, did I do the wrong thing? Like, am I out of it? Like, are they actually right? And I'm the person that has been aggressive, and I'm the person that's overreacting, and this wasn't such a big deal, and I'm making it a big deal. Like, why? And then conversations never resolve. And so if conversations never resolve, it's dropped. And that person ultimately is like, well, I got the W because I made them like stop talking about this thing. Because they never had any intention to want to talk about it anyway. Right? Because that's not the type of people that they are. They're distract. And then you feel unheard and dismissed. And that's exactly what they want you to do. They want you to they want to just literally shove it under the rug and pretend it never happened. And there's a lot of people that will say, you know what? I don't remember that conversation. I think I may have blocked it out. I don't know. I don't really care, honestly. Which in my mind, depending on the relationship between the two people that are having that conversation, if there's someone who's important to you, then that's not the attitude to have. It's not an attitude to just completely sweep something under the rug and then just be like, I don't even care about that really. I don't know why you do. It's not a big deal. But you think about it, if that person is really important to you, then there has to be some sort of give and take. And that the person who's attacking other people clearly has no real incentive or emotional intelligence to be able to kind of give their friend or whoever that person is what that person needs, which is really sad. It's actually really selfish too in some ways. But here's what you can do instead in a scenario like that. I'm not overreacting. I'm explaining my experience. And that your tone and your eye contact and all of that definitely conveys to them, look, this is personal for me. It might not be for you, but it's personal for me. And this isn't me versus you either. We're having a conversation. We're trying to hash things out. Or you could also say, we can see it differently, but I'm still allowed to talk about it. Because that's what we were going to do today. That's what we talked about. But now you don't even want to talk. You want to deflect. Well, I don't want to deflect. I want to talk about this and I want to figure it out. And then the other one is, I'm trying to have a conversation, not win an argument. Because clearly one person is looking to actually build common ground. The other one is looking to blow everything up. So they have two different paths, two different motives. And then, have you guys ever heard this before? Or what phrase would shut you down the fastest? Anyone have any? So, in closing, guys, we've been talking about, anyone have anything that would shut them down the fastest? So if you've ever left a conversation feeling confused or dismissed, it's actually not you. It's the way the conversation was redirected. And ultimately, that was a disingenuous way to redirect a conversation. And it's almost like gaslighting and manipulation all in one. So I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. I appreciate you all. And I hope that you'll come back and see me again. I've been going live daily on TikTok at noon and then YouTube at 12:30. And I have been probably going to go to Instagram here around 1. So if you're interested, the username is BuffyStar_fashions, I believe, on Instagram. So feel free and check that out if you like. And it was nice to meet you all, and I appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day and come back and see me again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye, guys.